The key felt cold and heavy in my hand. It was the key to my in-laws' house, a key I hadn't used in months. I stood on the front porch, a crisp October wind rustling the colorful leaves around my feet. The house itself looked quiet, peaceful just as it always did. But I knew with a sense of deep foreboding that had been building for weeks that the peace was an illusion, a fragile facade masking deeper tensions and expectations. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, a time usually filled with warmth, family, and the comforting chaos of preparing a large holiday meal. This year, my husband Brady and his mother Elaine had insisted that I come to their house for Thanksgiving, not just for dinner, but to stay for a week. They said Victor Brady's father, my father-in-law, needed care. His health had been declining steadily over the past couple of years, a combination of age, a heart condition, and increasing frailty. He was still living at home but required assistance, particularly with managing his complex medication schedule, his mobility, and general supervision. Elaine, a woman who prized her social life and perfectly ordered home above all else, found the burden of constant care increasingly inconvenient. Brady, the dutiful but often passive son, usually deferred to his mother's wishes, avoiding conflict and difficult responsibilities whenever possible. They explained that they needed to travel unexpectedly before the holidays for an important business engagement and couldn't leave Victor alone. "He needs you, Emma," Brady had said on the phone, his voice sounding stressed, rushed, almost pleading. "Elaine can't manage everything herself before we leave, and we can't take him with us. You're good with him, he likes you, he listens to you. We didn't have a choice." It felt like a heavy ask, a significant disruption to my own life, especially since I had my job as a graphic designer and my own limited vacation time to manage. But they framed it as a non-negotiable family obligation, a necessity in a pinch. My own Thanksgiving plans with my side of the family were reluctantly set aside. I packed my car with groceries, gifts for the family gathering I expected to join, and enough clothes for a week ready to help, ready to be the good daughter-in-law, suppressing my own disappointment about missing my family's tradition. I pushed the key into the lock and turned it. The door swung open to a silence that was immediately jarring. It wasn't just quiet, it was utterly still. No welcoming smells of cooking, no sound of the TV playing in the living room, no cheerful greetings from Brady or Elaine bustling about. The house was silent, unnervingly quiet. A sense of unease prickled at the back of my neck. "Hello," I called out, stepping inside, juggling bags of groceries and the pumpkin pie I had baked, the sweet smell feeling utterly out of place in the heavy air. "Brady, Elaine. I'm here." No answer. Just the rhythmic, mournful ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, counting out the seconds in the empty house. I walked through the living room, which was perfectly neat, undisturbed, as if no one had been in it for days. No signs of holiday preparations, no scent of roasting turkey or baking pies. Just the faint, familiar smell of Victor's pipe tobacco, a scent that always brought a strange mix of comfort and melancholy, a reminder of the kind, quiet man who inhabited this house. I went into the kitchen, placing my bags on the counter, the thud of the groceries landing seeming loud in the silence. And that's when I saw it. A small folded piece of paper on the kitchen table propped up against a fruit bowl. It was a note, in Brady's familiar, hurried handwriting, the kind he used when he was trying to get something done quickly. My hands trembled as I reached for it. A sudden, sharp premonition filled me. I unfolded the paper. The message was short, written in hasty strokes. "Emma, so sorry about this. Things came up last minute. Elaine and I had to take a trip. Had to leave quickly. Victor's got everything he needs. There was a list of basic instructions about his meds and food preferences. Just need you to stay with him. He needs you. We didn't have a choice. Emergency business. See you when we get back." Brady A-trip emergency business. My mind reeled, trying to make sense of the vague explanation. What kind of trip before Thanksgiving? And they just left Victor, my father-in-law who needed constant care, left him alone waiting for me to show up. The note felt dismissive, curt, utterly lacking in detail or genuine apology for the inconvenience or the sudden change in plans. My eyes scanned the counter, looking for any sign of where they had gone, any luggage missing any clue. And then, tucked under the fruit bowl, almost hidden, I saw a glossy travel brochure peeking out. Caribbean cruises, and a printed itinerary lay next to it, clearly visible now. A week-long luxury cruise, departing 2 days ago, from Miami for two, Brady Mitchell and Elaine Mitchell, and listed under passengers, along with Brady and Elaine, was a third name, Hannah Davies, a colleague of Brady's, someone he occasionally mentioned in passing, someone I had vaguely met once at a company picnic. My breath hitched in my throat, a strangle sound. Things came up last minute. Emergency business. They left for a week-long cruise in the Caribbean with a colleague 2 days ago, leaving his father, who needed constant care, alone until I arrived, not even confirming I was here yet, leaving me with a hasty note asking me to be their last-minute unpaid replacement caregiver while they went on vacation, and with a colleague on a luxury cruise, not even a family member joining them, just someone from work. The note, the brochure, the itinerary, they fluttered from my numb fingers onto the kitchen counter. My world tilted on its axis. Shock, profound and absolute, washed over me. Thanksgiving. Our plans shattered, replaced by a cruel, calculated act of abandonment, dishonesty, and manipulation. They hadn't gone on an urgent business trip. They had gone on a luxury vacation, a cruise, and they had offloaded their responsibility, their father, their husband, onto me, without a second thought, without proper communication, without any apparent guilt, simply because it was convenient for them. The thought of them sailing through the warm Caribbean waters, sipping cocktails on a sun-drenched deck, enjoying gourmet meals while I was here, expected to manage Victor's significant needs, to carry the burden of care they deemed inconvenient for their pleasure. It was a level of selfishness, disregard, and blatant dishonesty that was almost unbelievable. A wave of immense pain, betrayal, and searing anger washed over me, eclipsing the initial shock. They had lied. They had used me. They had treated me not as a wife, a daughter-in-law, a family member whose plans mattered, but as a convenient, easily manipulated person to offload their responsibilities onto when those responsibilities interfered with their desires. The unfairness of it all, the sheer audacity of their actions fueled my fury. They thought they could do this. They thought they could just write a note, shift their burden, and go enjoy themselves. They thought they could get away with it. Tears streamed down my face, instantly, hot and uncontrollable. Not tears of confusion anymore. Tears of deep, agonizing hurt, shame, and burning fury. They thought they could do this. They thought they could use me, discard my plans, and go enjoy their lives. They thought they could get away with treating Victor, their own father and husband, with such blatant disregard for his needs and well-being. Emma, a voice said, quiet, weak, interrupting my silent breakdown, my solitary moment of dawning realization and pain. I jumped, startled, the note and brochure still scattered on the counter. I had forgotten I wasn't completely alone. Victor. I turned. He was sitting in the doorway of the living room in his rocking chair, just watching me. His kind, tired eyes held a profound sadness, but also a quiet understanding. He was a sweet, gentle man, Victor, a stark contrast to his flamboyant, self-absorbed wife and often irresponsible son. His health had been failing for a couple of years. Nothing immediate life-threatening, but a general weakening. Some memory lapses, difficulty with mobility, requiring someone to be there, manage his increasingly complex medication schedule, help him navigate the house, ensure he ate properly. He was a gentle soul, always grateful for any kindness shown to him, rarely complaining. My connection with him had grown stronger over the years, particularly as his health declined, and Elaine and Brady's neglect became more apparent. I often felt more seen and appreciated by him than by my own husband and mother-in-law. I often felt more like his daughter than his daughter-in-law. I felt compassion for him, seeing him increasingly marginalized in his own home by the people who were supposed to care for him. He saw the note in my hand, the brochure on the counter, my tear-streaked face, my obvious distress. He didn't look surprised by their departure, only by my reaction to discovering it. Just sad, resigned, as if this was just another instance of their predictable, disappointing behavior. They they went on a trip. Victor, I stammered, pointing vaguely to the counter, stating the obvious needing to hear the words out loud, the brutal reality of it to make it real. He nodded slowly, his eyes filled with a deep, quiet sorrow that mirrored my own, a sorrow that spoke volumes about his own long-standing pain from their actions. "I know, Emma," he said, his voice weak, barely above a whisper. They They told me they had to go. Said it was important business. Said you would come. Said you would take care of me. My carefully packed car filled with holiday food and gifts sitting in the driveway now felt like a cruel joke, a monument to their deception, to my misplaced trust and effort. In that moment, looking at Victor, this kind, gentle man sitting there, abandoned by his own son and wife, so they could go on a cruise in the Caribbean with a colleague. The initial shock and pain solidified into something harder, fierce, cold. They thought they could do this. They thought they could use me, discard my feelings, and go enjoy themselves, leaving their responsibility, their father, their husband, in my care without a second thought. They thought they could get away with treating Victor, their own father and husband, with such blatant disregard for his needs and well-being, simply because it was inconvenient for them. They thought they held all the cards. They thought I was just a pawn they could move around their chessboard of convenience. They were wrong, so profoundly wrong. My tears were still streaming hot on my cheeks, but a cold, determined resolve settled over me. This wasn't just about a ruined Thanksgiving dinner anymore. This wasn't just about being used. This was about something much bigger, about justice for Victor, about holding them accountable for their cruelty and dishonesty, for Victor, and for myself. They thought they had won. They thought they had successfully offloaded their burden and sailed away to enjoy their ill-gotten freedom. They had no idea that in their cruel act of abandonment, they had just set in motion a chain of events that would shatter their world upon their return. They left me to care for their dying father-in-law while they cruised the Caribbean. They had no idea that Victor, in his quiet wisdom, had seen them, had understood their true nature, and had been preparing his own response. They had no idea he had changed his will. And that was where the game truly began. The days that followed were a strange mix of quiet routine simmering fury and a growing profound connection with Victor. My life became centered entirely around caring for him. His needs were significant, managing a complex medication schedule that changed frequently, helping him move around the house to prevent falls, preparing his meals, ensuring he was comfortable monitoring his health for any signs of change, providing companionship in his loneliness. It was demanding, often exhausting work, the kind of work that required constant vigilance and physical effort, the work Elaine had deemed too inconvenient for her social schedule and vacation plans. But Victor was a kind, gentle patient. He was unfailingly polite, always grateful for my presence, for my care, for the simple act of someone being there. We fell into a quiet rhythm, two people abandoned in different ways, finding solace and purpose in each other's company. My initial anger towards Brady and Elaine didn't subside. It deepened with every medication dose I administered, that they should have been managing every meal I prepared, that they should have been providing every time I helped Victor with something they should have been doing as his family. The unfairness of it all, the sheer selfishness of their cruise while I was managing the demanding realities of caregiving, the blatant dishonesty of their note. It fueled my resolve. It solidified my determination to see justice served for Victor, for his quiet suffering, for their callous disregard. The Mitchells were a family built on ambition and a certain level of comfortable living, provided by Victor's successful career in mention field, e.g. business management law. Elaine was the social engine of the family, focused on appearances, social status, and ensuring Brady, her only son, had the easiest path through life, often smoothing over his mistakes or providing him with financial support. Brady grew up somewhat spoiled, used to getting his way, often deferring to Elaine's strong personality, and avoiding responsibility whenever possible. Victor, in contrast, was the quieter force, the steady presence perhaps less involved in the day-to-day emotional manipulation that sometimes characterized the dynamic between Brady and Elaine. As Victor's health declined, his increasing needs became a burden that directly interfered with Elaine's social calendar and Brady's convenience. My connection with Victor grew precisely because I was outside their primary, often transactional dynamic. I saw him as a person, a kind soul, not just as a patient or a source of future inheritance. He appreciated my straightforwardness, my genuine care, a contrast to the often superficial interactions he had with Elaine and Brady regarding his health and finances. As I cared for Victor, he began to talk more openly than he ever had before. Quietly at first, recounting memories, expressing his disappointment, not just in his current situation, but in past instances of Brady and Elaine's behavior. And I started to notice things, find things that confirmed my initial suspicions, that leaving him for a cruise was just the most recent, most blatant example of a larger, darker pattern of neglect and exploitation. Victor perhaps trusting me, because I was the only one there, perhaps sensing his time was limited, and wanting the truth to be known and acted upon, subtly guided me towards crucial information and damning documents hidden within his study. I found financial statements that showed large, unexplained withdrawals from Victor's personal accounts over the past few years, often signed by Elaine or Brady under power of attorney withdrawals that didn't align with Victor's known expenses or medical needs. I found overdue medical bills for necessary treatments or consultations that had been deferred or outright canceled despite doctors' recommendations clearly to save money from Victor's assets Brady and Elaine clearly viewed as already belonging to them. I found notes from Victor's doctors recommending specific care therapy or equipment that had never been provided. Victor himself, in moments of striking clarity, expressed confusion and frustration about missing funds, canceled appointments, and being unable to access certain accounts or documents. He didn't explicitly accuse Brady or Elaine initially, but his quiet sadness, his confusion, and the cold hard evidence spoke volumes confirming they had been systematically mismanaging or draining his finances, and neglecting his medical care for years, viewing him as a burden, and his assets as theirs waiting to be inherited. The holiday cruise was just another instance of prioritizing their immediate pleasure and convenience over his fundamental well-being, the final act of abandonment leaving him with me because they didn't want to deal with him during their vacation. This wasn't just neglect. It was profound financial exploitation and potentially dangerous medical neglect committed by his own son and wife, people who were supposed to love and protect him. It was a profound betrayal of trust, leveraging Victor's declining health and trust for their own financial gain. My initial anger at being used solidified into a cold, burning fury at the scale of their cruelty and dishonesty towards a kind, vulnerable old man. My role shifted from reluctant caregiver to a determined investigator, quietly collecting evidence of their long-standing betrayal, acting on Victor's behalf. Victor, seeing my genuine care and growing awareness of his situation, and perhaps recognizing that I was the only one who could expose the truth and prevent Brady and Elaine from getting away with their exploitation, decided to trust me completely. He implicitly or explicitly guided me towards the crucial documents, the damning financial records, the overlooked medical reports, twist one. He confirmed the timeline of their financial control and the instances of neglected care. He shared his quiet observations about their priorities, their lack of true concern, their focus on his money rather than his well-being. He saw my genuine compassion and my growing anger at the injustice. Victor proposed a formal alliance, a plan to use their current abandonment and past actions to ensure they faced consequences. He wanted me to help him document everything now during their cruise, while they were undeniably neglecting their responsibilities and their dishonesty was laid bare. He wanted a clear, undeniable record of their absence of his needs, of the specific instances of neglect during this period, contrasting it with my presence and care. He also wanted a clear record of their past financial mismanagement and medical neglect. This wasn't about petty revenge. It was about justice. Victor wanted to ensure Brady and Elaine couldn't continue to exploit him, that his final wishes were respected, and crucially, that they didn't inherit the wealth they had shown such contempt for him and his well-being to acquire. Victor revealed his intention to change his will significantly. He had been thinking about it for a while, he said, seeing Brady and Elaine's true nature more clearly as his health failed. He trusted me completely. He saw my kindness, my unwavering willingness to care for him when his own family abandoned him for a cruise. He saw my integrity and my anger at the injustice being done to him. He wanted to ensure his legacy went to someone who deserved it, someone who had shown him genuine compassion and respect when he was most vulnerable. He wanted to leave the vast majority of his assets to me, not just as a reward for my care, but as a way to ensure his wealth wasn't inherited by the people who had mistreated him and plotted against him, and as a way to thank me for being there for him when his own son and wife chose a cruise over his care. This was the core of our counterattack, Victor's ultimate act of justice. While Brady and Elaine were enjoying their luxury cruise, Victor, with my help, or simply my presence and support as a witness and facilitator, contacted his personal lawyer, a longtime confidant and legal counsel whom Brady and Elaine either didn't know about or didn't control. This lawyer visited the house discreetly. Victor, in a moment of striking clarity and with unwavering resolve, instructed the lawyer to draft a new will and other necessary legal documents, drastically changing the distribution of his estate. He designated the vast majority of his assets, cash investments, properties, his significant stake in his former business, to me, Emma Johnson. He left only a nominal amount, perhaps a small percentage, or specific items of little monetary value to Brady and Elaine. Crucially, at the lawyer's recommendation, Victor also recorded a video statement, or prepared a sealed document to accompany the will, clearly explaining the reasons for this drastic distribution, detailing Brady and Elaine's long-standing neglect, financial mismanagement, and their final act of abandonment during the Thanksgiving holiday, contrasting it with my care and compassion. This video document was designed to be undeniable proof of his sound mind and the just reasons for disinheriting his son and wife in favor of me. Victor signed the new will and recorded his statement, a sense of peace settling over him. Our alliance was sealed not just by shared secrets and a mutual desire for justice, but by legal documents that would ensure his true wishes were honored, and that Brady and Elaine would face the ultimate, undeniable consequence of their actions. Victor passed away peacefully in his sleep, a few days after signing the new will, shortly before Brady and Elaine were due to return from their cruise. His passing was a moment of quiet sorrow for me, having grown profoundly close to him, in his final weeks, sharing meal stories and a common purpose. It was sad to lose him, but also a sense of peace, knowing his suffering was over, and that his final wishes were secured, that his story of betrayal would be told and acknowledged. I informed Victor's personal lawyer of his passing, the lawyer, aware of the recent will change and the potential for explosive conflict, began the necessary legal procedures to probate the new will. Brady and Elaine were informed of Victor's death shortly after they returned home, likely via a formal message left by the lawyer or a call from another family member. Brady and Elaine arrived at Victor's house perhaps a day or two after returning from their luxury cruise. They were likely still in their vacation mindset, tanned and relaxed, carrying shopping bags filled with duty-free souvenirs and tropical trinkets. Their initial reaction to Victor's death would be a performative grief, gasps, tears, expressions of shock, but likely mixed with a barely concealed eagerness to handle the estate and access the inheritance they believed was rightfully theirs. Elaine, with a show of sorrow, might ask me about Victor's final moments, expecting a simple narrative of a quiet decline, perhaps hoping I hadn't noticed anything unusual or uncovered any secrets. Brady would likely be focused on the practicalities, funeral arrangements, paperwork, and, of course, the will. The scene is set for the will reading, not at a sterile office, but perhaps at Victor's house, as per his preference, or at the office of Victor's personal lawyer, the one Brady and Elaine didn't know about, the one who held the new will in the video statement. Present are Emma Brady, Elaine the lawyer executing the will, and perhaps lawyers representing Brady and Elaine, if they've already hired counsel, sensing something is amiss due to the unusual circumstances of Victor's death and the handling of the estate. Brady and Elaine are dressed in somber clothes, but their eyes betray an eager, almost triumphant anticipation of their inheritance. They exchange confident glances, perhaps offering me perfunctory condolences, or making passive-aggressive remarks about how dedicated I was in Victor's final weeks, still seeing me as the convenient caregiver they enlisted. The lawyer, a professional with a calm, unwavering demeanor, begins reading the will. He goes through the standard legal clauses. Then he gets to the distribution of assets. He reads the bequests for Brady and Elaine. A small sum of money, perhaps a few personal items of sentimental value, a mere fraction of the vast estate Victor possessed. The amount is shockingly small, nowhere near what they expected. Brady and Elaine's faces moments before set an expectant confidence contort, with shocked disbelief and rising anger. Elaine gasps, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. Brady splutters, his face turning red. What? That's it? That's impossible. This can't be right. This isn't Dad's will. He would never do this. They direct their initial confusion and anger at the lawyer. Then their accusations turn to me. You tricked him. You manipulated him. He was old. He was weak. You took advantage of him. They accuse me of undue influence, of manipulating a vulnerable old man for his money. They threaten legal action, contesting the will, vowing to expose my supposed scheme. The lawyer remains calm amidst their accusations. Mr. Mitchell, Mrs. Mitchell. He says, his voice firm, cutting through their outrage. This is Mr. Vance's valid, most recent will. He gestures to the side. Mr. Vance anticipated that his final wishes might be unexpected and potentially challenged. He prepared a statement explaining his decisions. He indicates a television screen or a document case containing a video file. Mr. Vance wished for his reasons to be heard. The room falls silent again, a different kind of silence, tense with anticipation and dread from Brady and Elaine, who clearly had no idea about a video statement. The lawyer plays the video. On the screen appears Victor's face, looking frail, but remarkably clear-eyed and resolute. His voice, though weak, is steady as he speaks directly to the camera. He calmly and methodically explains his decision regarding his will. He details Brady and Elaine's systematic neglect of his medical needs, their refusal to provide necessary care, their focus on controlling his finances, rather than ensuring his well-being. He recounts specific instances of them prioritizing their own convenience over his needs. And then he specifically addresses their final act of abandonment, leaving him alone for a week to go on a luxury cruise right before Thanksgiving, knowing he required constant care and simply leaving a note expecting Emma to manage everything. He contrasts their actions with my care and compassion, my willingness to be there for him when they weren't. He states clearly that his decision to leave them only a nominal amount of his estate is a direct consequence of their years of neglect and their final act of abandonment. He states unequivocally that he is leaving the majority of his assets to me, Emma, because I showed him genuine kindness, integrity, and care when his own family failed him. He affirms his sound mind and his complete trust in me to honor his legacy in a way they never would. The video is undeniable proof from beyond the grave. Brady and Elaine are speechless watching their father, the man they thought they could manipulate, even in death, calmly and justly disinherit them while detailing their cruel actions. Emma or her lawyer, Ms. Chen, if present, steps in after the video concludes while Brady and Elaine are reeling. We don't need to argue about the will's validity. Victor's lawyer and his video handle that. We present the physical evidence we collected, copies of the detailed care log documenting their abandonment during the cruise, contrasted with the 24/7 care I provided. We show the financial statements with the large unexplained withdrawals they made. We show the overlooked medical bills and doctors' recommendations that were ignored. This evidence corroborates Victor's statement, proving the just reasons for his decision. Brady and Elaine, who abandoned their father for a vacation and planned to inherit his fortune, are utterly defeated. they are exposed not only as financially exploitative and medically neglectful, but also as callous and cruel, documented by Victor himself, and corroborated by the evidence. They lose their massive anticipated inheritance, receiving only a nominal amount. Emma, the victim of their deception and abandonment, the reluctant caregiver, is revealed as Victor's chosen heir, inheriting the vast majority of his estate, not through manipulation, but through genuine care and integrity. The legal and financial power reverses completely and irrevocably. Their neglect directly led to their disinheritance, and Emma's kindness and alliance with Victor led to her inheriting a fortune. Their attempt to use and discard Emma backfired spectacularly, resulting in their own ruin and her unexpected prosperity. Emotional catharsis. I sit there watching Brady and Elaine's faces as they process the reality of their disinheritance and the public exposure of their actions within the room. Shock, rage, denial, shame, utter defeat. It's all there. The contrast between their tanned, relaxed faces from the cruise photos and their current state of public exposure and financial ruin is stark. The pain of being betrayed, of being used of my ruined Thanksgiving. It is replaced by a cold, satisfying sense of justice and a profound recognition of Victor's trust and gratitude. I didn't fight for the money. I fought for Victor, for his dignity, for justice against their cruelty. And Victor in turn rewarded that with a generosity that went far beyond anything I could have imagined. Watching their faces as their smug confidence is shattered by the truth and the loss of their anticipated fortune, that is the ultimate vindication. Brady and Elaine inevitably contest the will launching a legal battle. However, with the meticulous evidence collected of their neglect and financial mismanagement, the undeniable validity of the new will and Victor's clear, compelling video statement, their legal challenge is weak. They likely lose their case, and Victor's will stands, granting the majority of his estate to me. They face significant legal costs and the public exposure of their actions within the family and legal circles, and potentially beyond, depending on the nature of the financial mismanagement. Their reputation is severely damaged. Emma inherits the majority of Victor's substantial estate, achieving financial security and independence far beyond her previous circumstances. My life after the legal battle is one of navigating newfound wealth and processing the emotional aftermath. My marriage to Brady is undoubtedly over. The exposure of his character, his complicity in the neglect, and his reaction to the will make reconciliation impossible. Our relationship ends not just due to past betrayal, but due to the undeniable truth revealed. I process the complex emotions of inheriting a fortune from my father-in-law, while his son and wife are disinherited. I learn to manage the wealth, ensuring it is used wisely, perhaps honoring Victor's values through charitable work or responsible investment. The bond with Victor, forged in his final weeks and solidified by his will, becomes a precious legacy, a testament to unexpected connection and trust. The experience taught me profound lessons about the corrosive power of greed and neglect within families. It showed me that appearances can be deceiving, and that the people closest to you can sometimes be capable of the deepest betrayals. It taught me the importance of listening to my instincts, of standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, Victor, and that genuine kindness and integrity, even when tested, can ultimately lead to unexpected forms of justice and reward. I learned that a will is more than a distribution of assets. It can be a final statement of values, of love, and of consequences. Victor taught me the ultimate lesson about true worth and misplaced trust, and in doing so, he gave me not just a fortune, but a profound sense of vindication and a new direction for my life. Looking back, the moment I found that note on the kitchen counter, the moment I realized I had been abandoned with Victor while Brady and Elaine cruised the Caribbean, was a moment of deep pain and shock. But it was also the beginning of a journey that led to justice, truth, and an outcome I could never have imagined. The wealth I inherited was Victor's final act, a consequence for their neglect, and a reward for my care. Considering Brady and Elaine's systematic neglect and financial exploitation of Victor, their father-husband, culminating in abandoning him for a cruise, and Victor's decision to disinherit them in favor of Emma, who cared for him. Do you think Victor's decision to drastically change his will and leave the majority of his fortune to Emma was a just and understandable consequence for Brady and Elaine's actions? Or do you think disinheriting his own son and wife entirely was a potentially overly harsh form of punishment, even if they were neglectful? A. Victor's decision was just and understandable, given their severe neglect and exploitation. B. Victor's decision was potentially overly harsh, disinheriting his own son and wife entirely. What do you think?